Hi, I'm Becky Streepy from Glue and Glitter, and today we're making vegan meringue cookies. Y'all, these meringue cookies are light and crisp, they're sweet, and they are completely addictive. My kid cannot stop asking me if he can eat another one. They're also very easy to make. This is kind of a time-consuming recipe, but your active cooking time is pretty short compared to the overall time. So when you see the cooking time on the written recipe, I don't want you to panic. For most of that time, you can be doing other things. Before we get to the recipe, I did want to go over the ingredients a little bit, just to give you an idea of how they work, why we're using what we're using, and then we'll dive into how to make these. So the first thing is the kind of aquafaba that this recipe calls for. So aquafaba is just the liquid from canned beans, and in this recipe we are using white bean aquafaba. In a lot of recipes, I say that you can use any canned bean liquid that you want, but for this recipe, using white bean is very important. That is because I have found that white bean aquafaba has the mildest flavor, and because the flavor of these meringue cookies is very delicate, the beany taste from something like a chickpea will overpower the whole recipe. So definitely go with the white bean instead. If you're wondering about the cream of tartar, don't worry, it's not a special ingredient. It's available in the spice or baking section of any grocery store. It's very affordable, keeps for a very long time. And all it does is add acid to the recipe so that your meringue's peaks will hold better. If you don't want to buy cream of tartar, I do include directions for substituting with apple cider vinegar. I have just found that the cream of tartar does a better job, so that's the one I recommend. But if you truly just don't want to buy cream of tartar, you can use apple cider vinegar instead. The other question I get a lot about vegan meringues is if you can reduce or omit the sugar, and the short answer to that is no. The reason for the no is because sugar is also part of what helps maintain the structural integrity of the meringue. So when you're whipping that bean liquid, what you're doing is creating air bubbles kind of wrapped in protein, and the sugar and the cream of tartar actually help those air bubbles hold their shape and keep the meringue light and fluffy. All right, so with that out of the way, let's make some cookies. Start by preheating your oven to 200 degrees Fahrenheit and then drain your can of beans, but before you pour the beans into the colander, stick a bowl underneath. That bowl is going to catch the bean liquid, and that's actually what you need for the recipe. Set those beans aside and use them for something else. I like to use my mixing bowl to capture the bean liquid. That way it's one less thing to wash when I'm all done. So right to that same bowl, add your cream of tartar and your vanilla extract. And now it's time to whip. I recommend for this recipe that you use an electric hand mixer. A crank mixer, you are just going to get so tired and you're not really able to maintain the speed that you need to whip these up. They do take about 15 to 20 minutes to whip, so an electric mixer is your friend. I haven't used a stand mixer to make these, but because it's a relatively small amount of liquid, I have heard people say that the stand mixer has trouble getting low enough into the bowl to reach it, but that's really depends on your mixer. So you can try a stand mixer. If it's not going well, switch to a hand mixer. So start whipping, and once the cream of tartar and vanilla extract are incorporated, it's time to start adding your sugar. You're going to do a half a cup of sugar total, but don't dump it all in at once. What you'll want to do is just grab a big spoon and do heaping spoonfuls at a time. So you'll scoop it in, whip until that sugar is incorporated, and then scoop in more, and just continue until you've used up all of your sugar. Whip your mixture on high until it starts to form soft peaks. At first, you'll see that it gets frothy, and then it'll start to look creamy, and then it'll start to thicken. You'll know that you reach the soft peak phase when you pick up a beater, and you'll see a tiny little beautiful peak of whipped aquafaba, and it'll like maybe slowly start to flatten out, but it's not going to be runny, like running off of the beater. If it is seeming runny, then you just need to get back in there and mix for a few more minutes and then check again. Now it's time to bake. So grab yourself 2 lined baking sheets, and I like to line these with parchment paper. I find it gets better results than a Silpat does, but definitely line your baking sheets. And then scoop up heaping tablespoons of the batter and just put dollops onto your baking sheet. You can put it into a piping bag and pipe out beautiful fancy meringues, but I wanted to keep this really simple for y'all, so we're just doing messy dollops. They taste exactly the same. You want to leave a little bit of space between these because these will spread out slightly during cooking, but like a half an inch or so between each cookie is going to be plenty of space. I was able to fit between 10 and 12 on a sheet, kind of depending on how well I spaced them strategically, you know? So you can fit all of the meringue batter onto the 2 baking sheets if you do it strategically. Then stick those in the oven and you're gonna bake them at 200 for 2 hours. When the baking time is up though, do not open the oven, do not take the pans out, just turn off the oven and then walk away. And let them sit in that cooling oven for 2 more hours at least. It can be longer, that's fine. You can actually, once you turn off the oven, you can go run errands, you can go do whatever, because even if they sit there overnight, it doesn't matter. You just want at least 2 hours because that extra cooling time in the warm oven is going to dry the cookies out further. If you take them out without that additional drying time, they will be nice and crispy at first, but they will soften within hours. So if you're not planning to eat these all within a few hours of cooking, you definitely need that extra drying time in the oven. Assuming that you did do the extra drying time, your meringues will keep for 2 to 3 days. I like to store these in an airtight container. You can either keep them on the kitchen counter or in the pantry. And really how long they keep will depend on the humidity of your kitchen. What happens is because they're so crispy and light and dry, they will naturally just want to absorb moisture from the air. So over time, they will just start to soften. So I've found that they keep for around 2 to 3 days in an airtight container, depending how often you're opening it, how humid your kitchen is, you know, how long you let them dry in the oven. Also, like how warm your oven stays. A better insulated oven, you know, will dry them more over those 2 hours. So there's a lot of factors at play. Just keep an eye on them and try to eat them before they go soft. We did it! We made vegan meringue cookies! And I hope that this video answered all of your questions about how to make them. If you have any questions that I didn't address in the video, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'm always happy to help. And don't forget to rate and subscribe. Happy cooking!